Greetings, psychology students and teachers. Before we get into the three components of the tricomponent model, let's just provide a bit of background on attitude. So Allport, a prominent 20th century psychologist, not a big fan of psychoanalysis. He thought that overcomplicated explanations of human behaviour. Not a big fan of behaviourism. He thought that oversimplified it. So in his work in the social psychology field, he was basically interested in individual differences, but also situational variables that will determine how we respond. In terms of his work on attitude, there's a lengthy definition on the screen here. There's 4 things that I think we really need to key in on. First of all, that an attitude is a mental and neural state of readiness. In other words, it's something going on at a cognitive level in terms of the thought processes. Second thing is, it's a result of experience, which explains why we have individual differences. Third thing, it's dynamic. In other words, we will respond to similar things in different ways depending on the context or mood at the time. And then the final thing, which is a real point of emphasis, is the response to objects and situations. So the tricomponent model breaks down attitudes into 3 key interrelated components, aka the ABC model: the affect, the behaviour, and the cognition. So students, when you're given a scenario and you're asked to identify the A, the B, and the C from that scenario, when you're looking for the affect, look for emotions, feelings, things like hostility, anxiety, anger, happiness, etc. When you're trying to determine what the cognitive part of it, look for things like the thoughts, the beliefs, the thinking processes that are going on. And then the behavior, when you're trying to identify that, those are the actions or intended actions. Not to be confused with CBT, but yet there's a number of parallels between these 2 models, apart from the fact that both of them have 3 components. The main difference is the whole purpose of CBT is to change behaviour, and this will get a bit of airplay in the Unit 3-4 course in relation to mental health. When we actually look at the tricomponent model, we're simply trying to explain behaviour, and then the model can be used to help address behaviour. Let's go through a practical example to illustrate. Let's say we've got someone who is a racial troll. Maybe they're trolling celebrities of a certain race. And our job is to unpack this and identify the A, the affect, the B, the behaviour, and the C, the cognition. And even though we're only given very limited information here, there's enough here for us to think laterally and be able to unpack it so we can explain this undesirable antisocial behaviour. So probably the easiest part of this is to actually determine the behaviour. So those are the actions, which are the trolling comments the person might be doing via a pseudonym, so they can't be identified. All right, but that's just, we can call that out, but we need to explain the behaviour in terms of the tricomponent model. So then let's go to the A, the affect, where we're looking for emotions, things like hatred towards members of the other race, etc., hostility, etc. And then we try and unpack the cognition. What are the thought processes? Because again, we're trying to get to the core of this behaviour. So maybe the troll thinks that the people from another race pose a threat. Okay, but again, you've got to work with the scenario here in order to be able to unpack the way we feel, the way we think, and how that impacts that undesirable antisocial behaviour. Now, even though the model is a bit dated, there's some real value in this model, particularly when we think about our target audience, VCE students, teens. So basically helping them to be introspective in terms of, well, I wasn't really happy with my behaviour in that social context. Maybe my attitude was a bit askew. Let's try and break it down in terms of the way I think and feel. So let's use the example, a harmless one, of road rage, since most of the audience here are not driving, but I'm sure you've all seen it from parents. You might have even been a victim of one if you're learning how to drive. Okay. So again, when you've been asked to unpack what are the 3 components of the tricomponent model in this road rage scenario, I think it's always easiest to start with the actions, the behaviour. So the behaviour is whatever retaliation the road rage instigator did. Was it a gesture? Was it flashing lights? Was it mouthing off? Or was it basically pointing at a bazooka at the other car? Then again, we're trying to explain the behavior. So the effect, that's the emotions. Maybe the person was feeling upset, aggrieved. Again, we want to use descriptors that highlight the emotions. And then the C, the cognition, is their thought processes. So maybe the driver thought, I'm doing everything okay, I'm a competent driver, this other driver is incompetent, they should not be driving, they've performed a risky act, a selfish act, etc. But again, the whole point is we're trying to unpack that the way you think and the way you feel in terms of the cognition and the effect will influence the behaviour.